Hello, everyone, and welcome to Turn Zero Loss. Today we are going to be discussing the blue color identity for Phyrexia. All will be one. There's a lot to talk about on this one, so we're just going to kind of go through as we have done in the previous episode and move it on, tell everyone about our favorite cards, and kind of discuss the color as a whole. For me, I will start us off here with one of my favorite cards in the set, is Mind Splice Apparatus. So this card has flash for 3 and a blue. It's an artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, put an oil counter on Mind Splice Apparatus. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each oil counter on Mind Splice Apparatus.
Oh great, Mizzix has another redundancy.
I have more toys.
I can I just say first of all that I'm really glad they didn't make this into a Mindslaver effect. Like,
yeah,
I'm kind of disappointed actually.
I'm so happy they didn't.
Yeah, it's not extremely powerful. It's probably not going to impact a lot of formats because like this is kind of like a slower card, but with all the proliferate in the set, it could impact a limited environment. But for the most part, I think a lot of the expanded formats, like Modern, Legacy, and all that stuff that could possibly run this card, they're not going to see very much of it. But for Commander, this speaks to me. This card lets me have Mizzix be in my command zone and still accrue value. And I love it. It makes it so easy to just feel good. I love it. I love this card.
I mean, I wish it was 1 cheaper. I think it could have gotten away with being 2 in the blue, but because people are freaking out about this card, it's a commander card. It is 100% a commander card.
Yeah, this will never see playing outside of Commander.
Yeah,
I don't even think it's good in limited, to be honest. Like,
I saw a lot of uproar about it when it was first spoiled and on Twitter, and I can't remember who summed it up the best, but somebody was just like, "This doesn't really do much until it's been out for at least 4 turns, because then, yeah, at the very least, you get your mana investment back if you can cast a spell that cost 4 or 5 mana, and even then, it's not that impactful. A lot of people think this is going to be like a bulk rare, which I'm hoping it will be, because I can get it for cheap then. The second card is a little more dubious in intent.
You should feel bad about this one.
yeah.
But I love this card still for Mizzix because it's still perfect. Ichor Moon Gauntlet. It is 2 and a blue for an artifact. Planeswalkers you control have 0 proliferate and -12. Take an extra turn after this one. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, choose a counter on target permanent. Put an additional counter of that kind on that permanent.
This is like an Exonerable Tide plus another really strong card got stapled together, and then for some reason this is 2 mana.
It's 3 mana.
If it said whenever you cast a non-creature spell, proliferate, it'd be different.
Oh, this card would be so much worse if it were proliferate.
I mean, it's still bad.
It's still a lot.
It is still quite a bit, yes, but it's not as bad as it could have been. But still, that -12 take an extra turn after this one ability is kind of rude, especially if you build a Super Friends deck and you put this in there for 3 mana. All your Super Friends boost each other up to get that 12 loyalty, and you just take an extra turn. Yeah, it can get out of hand pretty quickly. I can understand that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think this card is... it's good. There's no getting around that, but I don't think it's the boogeyman that everyone says it is, because, again, you have to have a Planeswalker out to really take full advantage of it, and it's a 12 loyalty effect for the extra turn.
Yep.
Like,
there's way better effects out there. I mean, Teferi does this way better.
Oh, God. Teferi does everything better.
One other thing I'd like to note on this card. I love the art on this card.
Oh,
it's
great.
It's
amazing.
So sick to see Tavio with that gauntlet just spewing that probably oil everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Hurts me inside because of the story, but damn, is it fucking gorgeous.
I mean, I still look at this card. It's like it's going to be a problem in Commander 100%.
Yep.
I think the issue is that this will be an unintended effect. This card can be played around with Narset. Parter avails to give it a plus.
You had to
ability.
say that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Any of the planeswalkers that don't have a plus ability now have a plus ability because of this card.
The thing about this, Astronaut will also have a plus ability now too.
Somehow, this is War of the Spark's fault.
It is War of the Spark's fault, 100%.
I can't imagine.
I think that proliferating should not be a zero cost loyalty ability.
It's too powerful for what it does.
It should be -1 at minimum. And honestly, I would say it'd be a -2 to effectively make it a -1.
Yeah.
This card is very easily abused. I'm not really sure on what formats have Planeswalker decks for the other Eternal formats, but I think this card can become a problem very easily if someone has the right build for it.
At least it can't proliferate infect counters. Like in terms of like the second ability there, because it has to be permanent, so it can't be like, oh, you're a permanent. No, that's not.
I thought technically the player is a permanent.
Is it? Am I wrong? Am I wrong in my thinking? Because if that's the case, then this is actually huge for Mizzix. But the players themselves are not permanents, according to the rules.
Okay.
So we are okay.
Thank God.
Everything is fine.
Still minus or zero loyalty proliferate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on. I think we've spoken enough on this one. Sherry, why don't you tell us a bit about your favorite cards in blue?
So I'm a little bit less mean, but also a little bit more mean in different ways. One of my favorite cards in this set is Encroaching Mycosynth, because it's going to be effectively a cheaper
Mycosynth Lattice.
Mycosynth Lattice. And that really warms my heart. Because I have a card that's been waiting to go in a deck, but I've been waiting for Mycosynth Lattice to go down in price. And now I don't have to wait. I just get this.
You know, the interesting thing for me about this one is that anything that reduces the cost of artifacts essentially reduces the cost of everything in your deck.
Yeah, I kind of see... I know this is maybe a little expensive for Pioneer, but I can see it becoming a problem in Pioneer.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is with this card, I don't think it's nearly as bad as Lattice was. It's not even close to me, because this only hits your cards. This doesn't hit everyone else's cards, which is what made the card combo so oppressive in Modern.
It's true.
I never saw you control. This still is one of my favorite effects, though. I would still stand by this. It gives you good value.
It is certainly strong, but yeah, it's not the absolute boogeyman that Lattice was. I still hate Lattice because of that combo. So, yeah.
Anyways, moving on to my next one. This is a little bit more of a kind of a fun commander I could potentially build around. It is... Where'd it go? Unctus is what I'm guessing it's pronounced. Grand Metatech. It is a legendary artifact creature, Phyrexian Vidalkian. Other creatures you control have, whenever this creature becomes tapped, draw a card and discard a card. Other artifact creatures you control get +1/+1, and you pay 1 Phyrexian until end of turn. Creatures or target creature you control becomes a blue artifact in addition to its other type, colors and types. Activate only as a sorcery. So I like this because Urza loves this. I like the way it interacts with Urza. So it now makes Urza a little stupider. Now that you not only have a Mox Sapphire, you now have a Mox Sapphire with upside. I just love that interaction.
So silly.
And it being only 3 mana, I think it is kind of like really powerful, because this is going to go in probably every Urza deck. It'll probably pilot its own decks too, because it's just a good artifact creature commander, and it allows, and I like its ability that it changes it can add artifact typing and the blue color changing effects have always been kind of like a sweet spot. I know they don't usually do anything, but I think it's pretty fun that I can do that now. It's just kind of a Timmy card that I really like. Or this is more of a, there's a lot of things you can do with a lot of rummaging abilities for just playing a lot of stupid mana rocks and just drawing a lot of cards. I just like this card a lot.
That's fair. I can get behind it.
Okay.
All right.
David?
Yeah, I guess I'll go with mine. This will definitely spark some discussion. So I'll start with the less controversial one. So the first one I want to single out is Mercurial Spelldancer. It is a 1 in a blue, 2/1 Phyrexian rogue creature. It can't be blocked. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put an oil counter on Mercurial Spelldancer. And whenever Mercurial Spelldancer deals combat damage to a player, you may remove 2 oil counters from it. If you do, when you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell, and you may choose new targets.
This is going in my rogues deck.
Yeah, this card is this card is an extremely good duplicator for pretty much any big mana instant or sorcery you want to cast. If you want to throw out a Mizzix Mastery and get a clone of that for some reason, you can do that. If you want to throw out Expropriate, you can do that. If you want to throw out any big spell that will win you the game, and you could just clone it with this. Like, I think, and you could just do it safely by just attacking somebody. Like, it's
so good.
it's a very good card. It's versatile because it can get damage in. So if you want to do Voltron strat, you can go that route with it as well. But yeah, mostly you're going to be using it to duplicate Expropriates or Cyclonic Rifts or other really nasty wasty cards that you want to play. So I think
giving it a bunch of swords and stabbing people.
Yeah, stacking swords on it too. Yeah, you could do that as well. Like, I think this card is extremely versatile and powerful, and 2 mana for an effect like that is just ridiculous. Like, it's such good rate, even if you have to work for it a little bit.
It just puts oil counters on itself.
Yeah. All right. The second card that I would like to talk about is one of the more controversial cards in the set to some people, but I don't really see the problem with it. It's Minor Misstep. 1 blue, instant, counter target spell with mana value 1 or less.
It's like great value Mental Misstep. Like, it's not as good as Mental Misstep. I don't know, people are comparing it a lot to that. The only reason why it's not as good is because you can't run it in every deck, especially for like modern. Like that's where most people are like, oh my god, this is gonna break a format. It's not that good. It's good, don't get me wrong, but it's not as good as everyone's like hyping it up to be.
Yeah, I also think it's very overblown because it's nowhere near. I don't think like it can just slot into decks like Mental Misstep could. It just can't, because you do have to pay the mana for it. But I still think it has a place in Modern, because you can never have enough low cost effects like that. Even just as a sideboard option, I think that there's value there.
Yeah, I mean, especially as like a replacement, because Mental Misstep's banned in Modern, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
it's banned in most formats.
Yeah,
that's fair,
and rightfully so.
I'm actually the prof. Actually, I watched one of his videos and he explained it probably best. You will not come out net positive on mana for this. So
no.
So, and I think that actually, I don't think it might not see any play in Modern. It might in Pioneer, but I don't think it's like Standard. It could have an effect because there's a lot of good 1-drops in this set. Like, looking at this from like a limited perspective or like a sealed, it can be a very good card because there's a lot of very good 1-drops in this environment.
See, I think this will see play in Pioneer, and it's likely going to see some sideboard play in Modern. This card never goes in a main deck. It's just too narrow. But in terms of like overall, I think this card has a place in a fair few formats, and it feels very fair. So again, the uproar to me is just completely overblown. I don't really get why it's so, controversial. But this card is still very good, and I'd run it in most decks.
That is completely fair. So what do you guys think as a whole for the blue section of the color pie, this set?
I think there's a lot of disgusting cards in this part of the color pie. But there's also a lot of cards that I kind of want to build around and build cards for the decks and just kind of set around it. Another notable include that was on my top 3, just was kind of outside of it. Prologue to Phyrexia. 1 in a blue. Each opponent gets a poison counter, draw a card. I love that card. That's a finisher.
That combos with a card. I can't remember what it pairs with very well.
Krakashima.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. It's
Yeah.
like it was Krakashima that it's like likely you'll poison people out unless you get really, really unlucky.
Yeah. So what's your guys' take on Tekuthal?
I think it's probably the weakest of the Phyrexian gods. Proliferating twice is okay, but in terms of everything else, I think it's probably the least impactful one.
It's a commander card.
Yeah.
You put this in any Atraxa deck. That's about it. Especially if you're playing Atraxa Sagas, the funnest Atraxa deck.
Certainly the most unique. Yeah, so I was kind of on the same boat. It's like, yeah, it's kind of neat, but it's narrow. It doesn't really do a whole lot immediately. It's not a big powerhouse, so.
What
shrug.
about completed Jace?
I hate this card.
It's so dumb.
I hate this card so much. Like,
Yeah, we'll just have it on screen. It said Planeswalker has a lot of stuff for it, but I think it can get pretty ridiculous if you really think about it too much. But it's not too bad. It just can be really annoying out of nowhere.
I think that the real thing is people underestimate how hard it is in formats. Like, if this was paired with Uctus, I could see it becoming more of a problem. But likely, because those two will likely share a drop slot, because you'll mostly play this at 3 mana to stay ahead of curve. The problem is Jace doesn't protect himself very well.
no.
And drawing 3 cards at -2 is actually kind of a relatively fair rate, because this is such an easily exposed card, you're just gonna attack it a lot. Like you're just gonna attack it once, deal with it, and its -X won't do a whole lot most of the time.
I agree. I think it'll die before any real value gets off on the -X. Otherwise, it's just like a 4 mana mill 15, which is pretty bad.
Yep.
If you wanted to use it that way. So yeah, I don't know. This card's whatever. Shrug. There are worse. We'll get to them, but
Yes, we will.
And then Blue Sun's Twilight, the worst of the Twilight, I believe.
really,
Yes. Actually,
I don't know about that, because if
I'd
for
say-
7 mana you steal a CMC 5 creature and then you copy it,
Yeah,
that can be very dangerous.
I think the only one that could be worse is going to be probably Black Sun's Twilight, but we can talk about that one later. Either that or what was Red Sun's Twilight?
It's artifacts. Well, it's on my list, so I'll discuss it.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think that one's kind of shrug. That one's very shrug for me, but it's not too bad. It's like I would use it. I'd definitely cast it in Mizzix and have fun with it. But other than that, it's okay. It's good. It's a pretty good card.
Yeah, I think it's certainly usable in a few decks. So
I just think 7 mana for a clone and copy is a lot.
It's
It's
permanent. It's permanent control though.
yeah, it's a steal. It's a flat out steal effect.
This would be the top end of your curve in most decks, and it's all right.
Yeah.
I don't like it because it's just like, eh.
Now pair that with Mind Space Apparatus, though.
Ooh. Now you're speaking my language.
And all the proliferate shenanigans you got going on in this set. Well, you might have something going on here if you're doing that.
Yeah.
Speaking of proliferating, I actually think a very underrated card in the set is Bringing the End, which is one in a blue, instant, counter target spell unless its controller plays 2. It also has Corrupted. Counter that spell instead if its controller has 3 or more poison counters.
Yeah, this card I think is going to be an all-star in limited, because you're trying to top out very hard in this set, and any kind of disruption towards that, even just 2 mana is generally going to be enough to alter a turn in your favor.
Yep.
It's very easy. It's only 1 blue. You can play this and splash other colors and have other colors in the deck.
Yep. Not to mention, with all the poison shenanigans going on here, it's very easy to get it to that corrupted mode where it just flat out counters instead.
Yep.
Which just makes it way better.
Yeah, there's a lot of support in if you just simply attach Aspirant's Ascent, which is until end of turn target creature gets +1/+3, gains flying and toxic 1. You attach that to the Mercurial Sundancer. It's like that's one already. And there's a lot of other ways to do it. Or if you proliferate, it's easy to get that. They have Thrumming Bird in this. I like that's a cool reprint. Thrumming Bird is basically flies over and then you proliferate. I think that's kind of Blue's color pie in this, is a lot of proliferating. And
man, how come Blue has the best art in this set? Not gonna lie, because that fucking art on Thrumming Bird is really cool too.
Yeah, I love the Thrumming Bird art.
I like the Tamio's Immobilizer art.
Yeah, that's brutal.
God. My favorite in blue is probably Meldweb Strider. It's just a really cool design.
Let's see. Ooh, yes.
Oh, that's menacing.
Yeah.
I would actually thought that would be an art for Phyrexian. It's the Phyrexian horror that penalizes people when you draw cards.
Yeah.
Oh,
Psychosis Crawler.
Psychosis Crawler, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Well, this has been our blue set review for Phyrexia LB1. Keep an eye out for the rest of the colors and then eventually our overall thoughts on this. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter if you have a chance, and we'll see you on the next one.